Hi everyone, thanks for joining. Those of you in the UK, I don't know if you've just seen the news. It's the government's working really hard to try and get us to band together and support each other. I mean, those of us away, it's really quite surprising what the news is all over the world. Anyway, I just wanted to wish everybody some luck and some care and support, and to try and be nice to each other, because I was out yesterday and it was not a pleasant experience. People fighting and arguing over food and just really quite scary. So just be careful out there. All right, so new grid. Telmo and I have been working on these grids as part of a giveaway, and this giveaway is really to help people gain a better understanding of how the PA Scribe calligraphy pad with Rhodia works. So what we've done is we've developed a new grid, which is slightly different from the grid on the that's coupled with the copperplate script manual, a yin and yang approach. It's the same principle, which is based on this fourfold symmetry that I developed. And essentially the symmetry is based around the fact that you're basically trying to stay inside of the boxes. So it's sort of like writing by numbers, but not really. So with this new grid, as with the fourfold symmetry, always mark off. Don't just jump onto the grid and expect to remember where the baseline and the X height is, because it's a grid. Your eyesight will drop down to the next line or move up to the next line. So, those of you who have a copy of the manual, if you don't have a copy of the manual, you can get it on the Shopify site. That's a digital version only. So essentially, I'm asking you with this new grid to basically follow a series of exercises. And the exercises are about coming down on the 55 and going around and up on the 55 and down and around and up, or up and around and down and stop and up and around and stop. Now, obviously, if we look at these two shapes, we can see that they are two different shapes. So in order to help you with this issue, we have altered the grid and added some circles to help you work with going around the circumference of the circles. So what you'd be expected to do is, let me just pull this down a little bit. What you'd be expected to do is to really be conscious of where the straight lines go. So for instance, let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. Oh, there we go. So for instance, I know that this circumference to this circumference is where I'm aiming for. So if we do it there, we're just going to halve that circle and halve that circle. So essentially, you're aiming for that as a straight line. On the opposite side, I know that this circumference to this circumference is what I'm aiming for. And consequently, we mark off at the bottom to the top. Notice I didn't mark off from the top to the bottom because this is an upstroke. So there's no point in marking off here and here when the movement is from here to there. So always look at the movement, because that movement will help you to sort of keep the structure of the script even though you're generating an exercise. So we're going to go from there to there. So I'm holding my pencil like this. Ideally, you want the point to face this direction, but with this set of exercises, I'm not really fussing too much about how you hold your tools. It's principally to get you to understand what the shape of to work with the shape of the construct. And this construct is what becomes your letters. So for instance, you know that you're working from here. So we're going there to there and there to there. One and around the circumference and down and around and up and around and around. Now, I'm going to show you a little trick that I've employed to help with this, and that is pressure. Now, the pressure is going to be in different places because I'm going to add pressure in certain turns to actually slow me down in order to complete the turn more accurately. So here we go. And inhale, pressure, no pressure, and press, and release, and press, and press, and press, and up. Now, normally when you tackle an exercise like this, you go up and over and down and around and under and up, instead of really taking your time. So I'm going to do that exercise again. So just look at where the pressure is going to be. So we have here and there, there, and there. So every time we're preparing for an apex, notice this is on this. So the word apex doesn't actually only apply to the top of something. It applies to the furthest part out on a curve. So the left apex, the top apex, the right apex, left apex, bottom apex, right apex. So that gives you a sense of how much slower I'm asking you to work. Now, this is a construct. The construct is there to help you gain a better understanding of the shapes and to gain a better understanding of the internal spacing of the shapes and to gain a better understanding of the space between the letters. So I'm just going to zoom out a little bit. Actually, I'm going to zoom out a lot because, so all of this is, so you get with this download, you get the grid and you get the augmented aspect of the grid and you get some exercises to work through. So I've just finished working on the exercises, working on the letters, and working on the words. Now, I just want to show you something about the words. This is not how we write copperplate script. But what I'm trying to help you to understand is by going up and over and down fully, one parallelogram, one, 1, 1, 1, 1. You get a better sense of how to produce a downstroke around a circle and up on that 55 again. This is only part one of the grid. It's only part one of the exercises. Part two we'll release in a couple of weeks. The reason for this is I want you to work through these letter forms the way they are constructed, simply and in a skeletal structure, before I introduce part two, because then you really get a sense of understanding how the spacing works and how the internal rhythms work. Thank you very much, Croc. So let's look at how this works for writing a word. The exercises really focus only on minuscules. There is a majuscule set, but the majuscule set will be part of the QR code on the back of the Rodia PA Scribe pads. So all the pads have a QR code and there's additional information on the back of that code telling you what tools and products work best with the papers and how they work, and giving you some little information, little bits of information like this kind of exemplar. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit. So let's look at writing a word. As you can see, the ascenders have one ball at the top. The X height has two, one at the X height and one at the baseline, and the descender has one. So this is roughly what a word looks like. So you go, and the other thing that I've included in the writing structure is the full ligature. So you're going to have to deal with the whole ligature as well. Talma and I are working on these right now. So they should be live soon, I would think by Monday or Tuesday. The live, well, I will leave the live up on Instagram as long as I can. And probably post it in the PA Scribe Calligraphy Classes group. I'll probably post it in a couple other groups on Facebook as well, so people have a sense of what's happening. Right, so let's get on with this. So if we write the word gathering, you would start here, lightly up and over and down, and back up and around on that circumference, and down, around, up and over, around, up, over and around. Notice I went from the straight to that circle. I'm going across, and it doesn't matter that I'm making it so big and halve the circle. Okay, so now I know this doesn't look like the word that you're accustomed to seeing, but it's about generating this evenness of internal space inside of the letter, between the letters, between the letter and the ligature, and obviously the next letter. Now, once you understand the structure of this, thank you, Mooncloud. Once you understand the structure of this, eventually, when we move to part 2 of the grid, what you will end up doing is this. So you're going to halve the grid. And so if this is halved, then that's halved as well. And that's a whole. And that's a whole. And that's a half. That's a half, and that's a whole. So in part 2, we'll look at dividing this up. But in part 1, I really don't want you to deal with the half marks. My aim for you in part 1 of this is for you to be able to follow around these circumferences, the straight lines and the circumferences easily. So straight up, around, follow that, and down, and follow that turn, and up, and around. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. So your breathing is also equally important. And as you can see, by using this structure, you get a really good sense of the internal width of the letters. Now, there is something else that I've added to this, and that is, to start off with, I'm asking you to not press in the place that you're accustomed to pressing. So press at the top, release, press at the bottom, release, top, bottom, and top, bottom. So I'm actually pressing in the opposite place that I would normally press. So that this forces you to slow down the writing in a way that you're not accustomed to. Of course, when it comes to using the pencil like the nib, right. Thanks, Catherine Jane. All right, so that gives you a really a good sense of what this PDF is going to offer. In the PDF, there is also a ton of information on which tools and materials I'm using. So this is a Bien Fang marker pad, which is distributed by Speedball. I mean, these are really good for this kind of thing. You can use layout paper, tracing paper, marker pads. You have to be conscious that the paper isn't too thick because you really need to be able to see the circles. I wouldn't suggest working directly onto the printouts because you'd have to be pressing really hard to differentiate between the printed lines and your written lines. And the aim here is not to get you pressing hard. Oh, as soon as the grids are ready, I'll do a post on it. We're still working on putting them together. I mean, Talmu's in the final stages of putting together all the material I've sent him, which is a lot of material because we have an introduction, some notes for you to follow through, and then oh, thanks, Debbie. Thank you so much. And so then we have some notes for you to follow through and to read, and then there are the exercises which I've just shown you, the exemplars, and then the grids. There's a group on Facebook, PA Scribe Calligraphy Classes, and in that group I've set up an album which is specific to this practice, which is quite funny. It's a PA Scribe Copperplate Script Training Wheels Part 1. And please only post the work from this part of the PDF, which is Part 1, in the Part 1 video. This is only a pencil practice exercise. This is not a pen exercise. Don't post pen work in the album. This is only trying to get you to work through some practice and get a better understanding of internal spacing in the letters and between the letters for better spacing in the words. All right. So thank you very much for your time. And I'll do some more posting once we have more information on exactly when they'll be up. They'll be available on Shopify. It's a free download, but you'll have to fill in some contact details. And once you've done that, then you get access to the download. And all the information about the groups, the group and the albums and posting, all of that will be embedded in the download. So great. So at least that gives you guys something to work with at home, to be peaceful with at home, and to not panic. Just be careful out there. Take care. Be conscious of other people's space. Be conscious of your own space. Listen to what your governments are telling you to do, and just stay at home and be calm. Thanks very much. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.